And now it's time for Focus. Today we're looking at how Italian Catholic groups are helping refugees, not just those who've reached Italy, but those who wish to live there. A France 24 team followed a Syrian family travelling to Italy from Lebanon, a Catholic group funding the trip with the authorisation of Rome.
This is a long-awaited visit. Mohammed and his family come from Syria. They live here in Bauta, 20 kilometres south of Beirut. They have been living in this building for 3 years, along with 100 or so other Syrian refugees. The majority of these families all share the same dream, to finally get to Europe. Today, a representative of the humanitarian mission has come to bring this family some news that will completely change their lives. Within a few days, they will be boarding an airplane to Italy. Maria Quinto is a representative of the community of Sant'Egidio, an Italian Catholic NGO that set up this initiative. She has come specially from Rome to oversee the humanitarian corridor, to select the families and to prepare them for a new life.
Are there any mosques over there?
Italy is a country where everyone is allowed to have their own religion and is free to practice it in peace. We're always asked those kinds of questions because they're frightened. It's a very difficult decision to leave one's home country or a country like Lebanon that is so close to Syria, culturally, geographically, and with the same traditions.
The vulnerability of this family was a major criterion in their selection. Their young baby suffers from a congenital disorder and needs to be operated on. Thanks to the humanitarian corridor, they have achieved the impossible. They have been given a visa for Italy, a precious gift.
The most difficult thing in the world for me is my son's health. I've seen everything, war, destruction, horror, but the hardest thing I've had to deal with up to now is my son's illness.
A few days later, everything is ready for the departure. 37 families, most of them Muslim, will be leaving for Italy today with suitcases full of dreams. But for many, the goodbyes are tough. This Christian family escaped from the northeast of Syria last year. They arrived in Lebanon 8 months ago, and now they are hoping to be able to rebuild their lives in peace in Europe.
What I'm hoping for in Italy is that we can live in dignity, and above all that my son can study and study some more.
Once at Beirut Airport, the atmosphere is festive.
Very nice.
They are all trying to immortalise their last moments in Lebanon before embarking on the trip to Europe.
It's a curious feeling of both joy and sadness. We've spent 10 days crying for Aleppo. They've destroyed Aleppo. Nothing's left. The people are being cut into pieces. We are sad because we still have family over there. My brother and my parents-in-law are there. But I'm happy because I've been able to save my family. We still have loved ones over there.
We're going to Italy, to Rome.
All these families have been registered as refugees by the United Nations Refugee Agency. They are travelling with a humanitarian visa granted by the Italian consulate in Lebanon.
So many refugees spend all their savings paying the human traffickers in order to reach Europe. Thanks to this initiative, they'll manage to do it without putting their lives at risk.
In safety, on board a commercial airplane. Their faces show relief and hope. After a 3-hour flight, they arrive in Rome, met by a delegation from the Italian Interior Ministry and representatives of the Christian NGOs that are behind this initiative.
Benvenuti in Italia, benvenuti in Europa.
The Yunan family will be housed in Rome, where they will file an official asylum request. Others will be directly transferred to other cities in Italy. Mohammed and his family will be taken to Turin in the north of the peninsula, like this couple that left Homs 5 years ago with their children.
I hope that our future here will be happy. I did some research on Italy and I sense that it will be very positive for my children. We'll learn the language and they'll integrate into society.
The Italian government will not be spending any money on this pilot project. The refugees are cared for by private funds. However, the initiative has provoked some criticism. A right-wing party has denounced the interference of Christian NGOs in European affairs. A conscious decision.
Yes, we want to interfere in European politics because we think that the bureaucracy is not working, and sometimes too much bureaucracy is even dangerous because bureaucracy can let people die.
Between now and next year, nearly 1,000 refugees will arrive in Italy thanks to this humanitarian corridor. But yet, thousands more continue to cross the Mediterranean on makeshift boats, to land every week on the shores of Europe.
For more on this, I'm now joined in the studio by a migration expert, François Germain. Hello, thank you very much indeed for your time. Now, are there groups, Catholic or otherwise, in other parts of Europe carrying out similar initiatives, helping refugees reach the continent?
There are a few, but these initiatives remain quite isolated. We've just watched a report about the initiative by the community Sant'Egidio in Italy. There is another one which is carried out by a group of citizens in Belgium, a group called Un Visa, Une Vie, One Visa, One Life. And they've managed to bring two families from Turkey, two Syrian families, into Belgium. And then, of course, there is the initiative currently being carried out by the government of Canada. Canada is massively issuing humanitarian visas to Syrian families so that they can come to Canada. About 30,000 of them have come this way. And this is what European governments should do, what they should have done a long time ago.
What's being done to encourage them to do this, to open their doors and let more people in?
Well, absolutely nothing at the moment. I mean, all European governments have the possibility of issuing humanitarian visas. This is what NGOs and diverse associations and people, including myself, have called for years ago, to tell governments you need to set up humanitarian corridors so that the people can come by plane instead of coming by makeshift boats and risking their life. But European governments are refusing to do so on their own because they don't want to give the impression that they're organizing the arrival of refugees into Europe. So instead, it is up to NGOs, associations, and citizens groups to do the job governments should be doing.
Is that then because of the reaction they're afraid they would get from the public? Would the public not be in favour of government-sponsored, funded trips?
Yeah, European governments are afraid. They're afraid of extreme right parties and nationalist parties. They're also afraid of public opinion. And yet, there is no reason to be afraid of public opinion. A few days ago, Amnesty International released an opinion poll carried out in a few European countries showing that European public opinion massively supported pro-refugee policies and demanded their governments to do more to welcome refugees. So there is no reason for governments to fear public opinion.
Perhaps public opinion, but when it comes to the far right, I mean, we saw in Austria they almost elected a far-right president, the far right gaining more influence, more power across the continent. What kind of effect would you say that's had on perhaps delaying a solution to the migrant crisis?
Well, obviously the extreme right has captured the agenda, the political and media agenda on these issues, and it is not the extreme right asking the questions and the other political parties are just providing the answers. And I think that democratic political parties need to abandon this stance, this reactive stance, and need to come up with concrete proposals for immigration and asylum policies. At the moment, there is a complete void, a complete policy void in terms of asylum and migration, and this void is, of course, occupied by the extreme right parties, hence the success they have in so many European countries.
So where would Europe's refugees and migrants be without aid agencies, the many agencies that are working across camps across the continent?
Well, let's be clear, they would be in very dire situation in makeshift refugee camps, the same way we've had in Calais or in Idomeni. They would be in similar situations in Turkey, in Jordan, in Lebanon, and they could be like that for years and years unless someone finally decides to do something and take up the challenge.
In Greece, they say they're taking them, though, to live in better conditions. And what's your reaction to that, considering they do have very little chance of actually getting across the border?
Yeah, well, we'll see what the Greek government will be doing. My concern is that Greece might become the refugee camp of Europe in the future, and that obviously, the EU has not been able to come up with an organized solution, with a cooperative solution. And so it is up to the Greeks and to a lesser extent to the Italians to do the job. This is insane and this needs to stop.
All right, we'll see how things evolve. Thank you very much indeed, François Germain, for coming in for today's Focus. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. I'll be back in a few minutes with a full news roundup.